Have you ever wondered what hell actually looks like? Not the cartoon version with fire and devils, but the real vision of eternal punishment described by one of the greatest poets in history? What if I told you that Dante's Inferno might not just be a medieval fantasy, but a map of the human soul, and maybe even a prophecy of our own time? Why were popes, kings, and even entire cities condemned in his poem? Was Dante simply writing a story? Or was he secretly exposing corruption, hidden sins, and the ultimate fate of humanity? And here is the most controversial question of all. If hell exists exactly as Dante described it, layer by layer, punishment by punishment, where would you end up? This is not just literature. This is a mirror. Dante's journey through hell forces us to face uncomfortable truths about power, greed, lust, violence, and even the hypocrisies inside religion itself. It is no wonder his work shook Europe to its core, because it dares to suggest that even leaders of the church, even those who claim holiness, could be rotting in eternal fire. So stay with me until the end of this video, because we are going to walk through the gates of hell together. We'll descend circle by circle, discovering the terrifying punishments, the twisted logic of divine justice, and the chilling question Dante leaves for every reader. Are you sure your soul is safe? The next part will not only reveal the shocking details of each circle, but it will also challenge how you see sin, justice, and even your own life. This is not just a story, it's a warning. And trust me, you won't want to miss what's waiting in the deeper circles. In the year 1300, when the world of medieval Europe was weighed down with wars, corruption, and uncertainty, one man would take us on a journey not just across land, but through the very realms of eternity itself. His name was Dante Alighieri, and his vision became what we now know as the Divine Comedy, a masterpiece of literature, philosophy, and theology that continues to haunt and inspire humanity even 7 centuries later. But today, we are not walking in the bright gardens of paradise, nor basking in the hopeful plains of purgatory. No, today, we descend into the very depths of Inferno, the first part of Dante's epic journey. And trust me, every step downward is more terrifying, more shocking, and more fascinating than the last. Dante begins in a dark wood. Imagine this. He is lost, confused, surrounded by shadows. The forest is thick, menacing, and endless. This is not just a physical space, it's a metaphor for the soul that has lost its way. And isn't that something we all can relate to? That feeling of being lost, unsure of what path to take, and suddenly realizing that danger is all around? The beasts of sin lurk in this wood. A leopard representing lust, a lion representing pride and violence, and a she-wolf representing greed and endless hunger. Each blocks Dante's path. Each symbolizes the forces that hold us back from salvation. But this is just the beginning. What lies ahead is far darker. Enter Virgil, the ancient Roman poet, the voice of reason, wisdom, and guidance. Sent by Beatrice, Dante's beloved, Virgil becomes the guide who will lead Dante through the 9 circles of hell. Already, notice the symbolism. Reason must lead the soul through the darkest trials before it can ever hope to reach light. But as they approach the gates of hell, they encounter one of the most chilling lines ever written. Abandon all hope, the who enter here. Just imagine standing before those gates, knowing there is no turning back, only descent into terror. And yet, this is only the threshold. Inside the vestibule, Dante sees the souls of the indifferent, those who lived without choosing good or evil, who only cared for themselves. They are chased endlessly by swarms of wasps and hornets, a torment that matches their wasted, stinging lives. And if this shocks you, wait until we move deeper. For every circle of hell reveals not just punishment, but a reflection of the sin itself, as though justice has been woven into eternity in the most terrifyingly poetic way possible. As Virgil leads Dante across the river Acheron, the ferryman Charon appears, his eyes burning like fire as he transports the damned into their eternal prison. Here begins the first circle, Limbo. Unlike the horrors to come, Limbo is a place of sorrow rather than torment. Here dwell the virtuous pagans, the great philosophers, poets, and thinkers who lived before Christ, Homer, Socrates, Aristotle, and many more. They are not tortured, but they are forever cut off from God's presence. This is Dante's way of showing us that knowledge, culture, and wisdom alone, without divine grace, cannot bring salvation. And while Limbo seems almost gentle compared to the punishments to come, it already hints at the deeper tragedy of hell, separation from the divine. But the next circle, that is where the real torment begins. The second circle is for the lustful. Here the souls are tossed and blown about by a violent storm without rest. Just as in life, they were swept away by their passions and desires. Dante meets the tragic lovers Paolo and Francisca, caught forever in the whirlwind of their sin. Their story is heartbreaking, their punishment endless, and this is only circle 2. Imagine how much darker things will become as Dante and Virgil descend further and further into the abyss. The third circle belongs to the gluttonous. Here, the damned lie in cold, filthy slush, while an eternal storm of freezing rain and hail pounds down upon them. They are guarded by Cerberus, the three-headed dog of hell, whose hunger can never be satisfied. Notice the pattern. In life, the gluttons consumed without thought. In death, they are consumed by filth and guarded by a beast of insatiable appetite. Dante shows us how every sin shapes its own punishment, a truth that becomes even more horrifying as we continue. And believe me, the next circle will shock you even more, for here we encounter greed itself in its rawest form. In the fourth circle, the avaricious and the prodigal push enormous weights against one another for eternity. These rolling stones symbolize their obsession with material gain and reckless waste. And what is most frightening is how Dante suggests that both extremes, hoarding and squandering, lead to the same ruin. The guardians here are the infernal figures of Plutus, the god of wealth, a reminder that even ancient mythology bends beneath the moral law of Dante's vision. But this is only half the journey. Ahead lies the fifth circle, and here the river Styx boils with rage and wrath. In the fifth circle, the wrathful fight each other endlessly on the surface of the black, swampy waters, while the sullen sink beneath it, choking on their own suppressed anger. This is the realm of those who let fury or bitterness consume their souls. Imagine the sight, furious souls striking and clawing at one another, while others sink silently, trapped forever in suffocating darkness. This is hell growing more violent, more intense, and more unbearable with every level. And yet, there are still 4 more circles to descend, each more terrifying than the last. As Dante and Virgil journey deeper, they come to the gates of the city of Dis, guarded by demons and fallen angels. Here begins lower hell, the place of more serious sins. Fire glows in the distance, iron walls rise high, and the air grows heavier with despair. The heretics lie in flaming tombs, their arrogance in life matched by eternal fire. The violence of hell increases with every step, and you can sense that Dante is building towards something unimaginable at the bottom. In the circle of violence, souls boil in rivers of blood, are transformed into twisted, thorny trees, or wander a burning desert beneath a rain of fire. Here the Minotaur rages, the centaurs guard, and the harpies shriek. Each image is darker than the last, each punishment more symbolic and terrifying. But what follows is even stranger. The circle of fraud, where trickery, hypocrisy, and deception are punished in grotesque ways. Souls are whipped by demons, trapped in flames, twisted into grotesque shapes, their bodies reflecting the lies they lived by. Finally, deeper still, lies the frozen lake of Cocytus, where traitors are encased in ice. This is the very bottom of hell, where Satan himself waits, enormous, terrifying, with 3 faces chewing endlessly on Judas, Brutus, and Cassius, the great betrayers. But even here, In the darkest depths, Dante's journey is not over. For after seeing the very embodiment of evil, he must climb down and prepare for the next stage, the mountain of purgatory. And that, my friends, will take us into a whole new realm of mystery and revelation, one even more fascinating than the horrors of Inferno. But before we leave, ask yourself, what does each circle really represent? Are these ancient punishments merely fantasy, or do they reveal truths about human nature that still haunt us today? Because the deeper you go into Dante's vision, the more you realize. Hell is not just a place, it's a mirror of the soul. And the next part of this journey, Purgatorio, will reveal even more secrets, more hidden meanings, and more powerful visions than anything we've seen so far. As Dante and Virgil press onward past the city of Dis, the atmosphere itself grows heavier. No longer does the air simply reek of decay and smoke. Now it feels oppressive, suffocating, charged with the weight of despair. The flames of the heretics still glow behind them, but before them lies the dark, twisting descent into the circle of violence, a place so strange and terrifying that every new step feels like plunging deeper into the heart of madness. And yet, the more horrifying it becomes, the more fascinating it is to see how every punishment matches the sin, how justice is twisted into poetry. You cannot look away, because the next sight is always more haunting than the last. Here the river Phlegethon boils with the blood of those who lived by violence against others' tyrants, murderers and warlords who shed blood without remorse. They scream and thrash in the burning river as centaurs gallop along the banks, firing arrows into any soul who dares to rise above their level. And among the damned, Dante recognizes faces from history, men whose cruelty carved their names into the world of the living, only to find themselves punished eternally in a river of the very blood they once spilled. The horror of this sight only deepens the anticipation of what lies ahead, for violence is not punished in just one form. It splinters into 3 terrible subcircles, each darker than the last. The second ring of violence is unlike anything we've seen before. Imagine a twisted forest, but instead of trees of wood and bark, these are souls transformed into gnarled, thorny branches. Their leaves are sharp, their bodies are bleeding sap. And when harpies, winged monsters with the faces of women, tear into the branches, the trees scream in agony. These are the suicides, those who took their own lives, condemned now to remain trapped in the twisted prison of their own bodies, turn trees. Dante, shaken, breaks off a twig, only to hear it cry out in pain, a voice of Pier della Vigna, a man once close to the Emperor Frederick II, now reduced to this eternal torment. It is here we begin to see Dante's compassion battling with his horror. But he cannot linger, for the third ring of violence awaits, and it is even more dreadful. Picture an endless desert of burning sand. Above it, flames fall like rain, yes, a storm of fire, searing everything it touches. Here lie the blasphemers, sprawled on the fiery ground, cursing God with every breath. Others, who are violent against nature, wander endlessly under the burning rain. And still others, the usurers who exploited life itself, crouch on the sand with heavy purses hanging from their necks, their wealth branding them even in death. This desolate wasteland burns with symbolism. Sins against God, against self, and against nature, all scorched by divine fire. But even this inferno of violence is not the end. Ahead lies something stranger, something even more sinister. The 8th circle, the realm of fraud. And what Dante finds there will shock you more than anything yet. But before he can descend, Dante and Virgil encounter something extraordinary. The monster Geryon, a grotesque beast with the face of a man, the body of a serpent, and the tail of a scorpion. Symbolizing deception itself, Geryon becomes their transport, carrying them downward into the abyss. Imagine riding upon a creature of lies, descending into the darkness where fraud festers. It is the perfect image of how deception carries the soul down into ruin. And what lies below is a labyrinth of punishment unlike any other, divided into 10 separate ditches, called the Malbolge. The first ditch is filled with seducers and panderers, driven back and forth by horned demons wielding whips. Each lash is a reminder of how they manipulated others in life, turning love into commerce, desire into corruption. The second ditch is worse. Here the flatterers wallow in a river of human excrement, their false praises now drowning them in filth. Dante spares no mercy in showing how words, so light and pleasing in life, become unbearable in eternity. And if this disgusts you, the next ditch will disturb you even more. For here we meet the Simonists, those who sold holy offices, twisting faith into profit. These corrupt clerics are buried upside down in holes, their feet burning with fire, a perverse parody of baptism. Dante, fiercely critical of church corruption in his own time, lashes out in righteous anger here, making this canto one of the most politically charged of the entire Inferno. He names names, he attacks greed in the highest offices, and he leaves no doubt that hell has a special place for those who exploit the sacred. But the punishment grows stranger still as they move forward. Diviners and false prophets, with their heads twisted backward, forced to walk while looking only behind them, a grotesque mirror of their attempts to see the future. And this is only halfway through the Malbolge. Can you imagine what the later ditches hold? Next are the grafters, immersed in boiling pitch, with demons clawing at them with hooks whenever they try to surface. These scenes are so vivid that they feel like watching a nightmare play out in real time. The hypocrites march in endless circles, weighed down by cloaks of gold that are heavy with lead, inside beautiful, on the outside, crushing within. The thieves suffer in horrifying transformations, merging with snakes, their bodies twisting, dissolving, reforming in endless cycles of pain. And then there are the false counselors, consumed by flames, each wrapped in fire as their deceit once wrapped their tongues. Among these burning souls, Dante recognizes Ulysses. Yes, the very hero of Homer's Odyssey, now punished for his cunning lies and reckless pursuit of knowledge beyond human limits. Here, Dante shows us how even the greatest heroes of myth are not spared from judgment. And yet, as fascinating as these ditches are, the horror continues to escalate. The sowers of discord are mutilated again and again, sliced open by demons only to heal and be cut once more forever. Imagine seeing figures like Muhammad, Shurio, and others torn apart endlessly for spreading division. And at last, the falsifiers' alchemists, counterfeiters, impostors wrought in disease, madness, and filth, their bodies crumbling as their lies once did. Each Malbolge is more grotesque, more inventive, more shocking than the last, and Dante spares nothing in making the audience feel the full weight of corruption and deceit. But as horrifying as fraud is, there is still one sin left to explore, the lowest circle, the deepest pit of hell, treachery. And what lies there is colder, stranger, and more terrifying than all the fire and torment above. In Cocytus, the frozen lake at the bottom of hell, the souls of traitors are trapped in ice, their tears freezing on their faces. No fire here, only cold, the absolute absence of warmth and love. The deeper the betrayal, the deeper they are encased. Some only have their heads above the ice, while others are completely frozen within it, locked in eternal isolation. And at the very center, beneath the surface, rises the monstrous figure of Satan himself. Dante describes him as a colossal giant with 3 faces, each chewing on a traitor. Judas Iscariot, the betrayer of Christ, and Brutus and Cassius, the betrayers of Julius Caesar. His wings beat endlessly, not to free himself, but to freeze the very lake that imprisons him. It is the most chilling image of all the ultimate punishment for the ultimate sin. And yet, even here, the journey does not end. For Dante and Virgil must climb down Satan's body and emerge on the other side of the world, where the mountain of purgatory rises, waiting to reveal a new and unexpected path toward hope. But before we can climb, we must pause. Because what we have seen so far, the dark forest, the gates of hell, the storm of lust, the river of blood, the twisted forest of suicides, the burning desert, the 10 ditches of fraud, and the frozen lake of treachery, are not just grotesque images. They are reflections of humanity itself, mirrors of our own sins and choices. The next stage will change the tone completely, replacing despair with struggle, suffering with hope, punishment with purification. And that will be even more fascinating, because purgatory is not what most people imagine. It is stranger, more mysterious, and perhaps even more revealing than hell itself. Dante and Virgil, having descended through every twisting circle of hell and climbed down the monstrous body of Satan himself, find something completely unexpected. Instead of falling further into darkness, they emerge into a new world, one filled not with flames or ice, but with the faint glimmer of stars. For the first time since entering the Inferno, Dante looks upward and sees the night sky. It is a moment of breathtaking contrast. After endless despair, there is suddenly the possibility of hope. But hope here does not come freely. Before salvation can ever be reached, the soul must climb, must struggle, must purge itself of the sins that weigh it down. And so begins the journey of Purgatorio, the second part of the Divine Comedy, where suffering is transformed into purification, and every step upward reveals mysteries greater than the last. The mountain of purgatory rises like a vast island in the southern hemisphere, formed, Dante tells us, when Lucifer fell from heaven and crashed into the earth, forcing the land to rise opposite Jerusalem. It is an image as grand as it is symbolic. Hell digs downward into the earth as depths, while purgatory rises upward toward the heavens. At its base lies the shore where souls newly arrived from the world gather, waiting for their chance to begin the climb. And here, Dante meets one of the most powerful images of redemption, the angel boatman. Unlike Charon of the Inferno, who ferried souls into despair, this angel carries the saved across the waters with wings of light, moving faster than any earthly vessel. Already, we can sense the shift. What was once grotesque and terrifying becomes awe-inspiring and mysterious. And yet, the climb itself will not be easy, for every terrace of the mountain will test the soul in ways even more profound than hell's punishments. At the very base of the mountain is anti-purgatory, where souls who delayed repentance linger before being allowed to climb. These are the excommunicated, the late repenters, and those who wasted their lives before turning to God at the very last. Their suffering is not eternal, but it is long, and it reflects the consequences of hesitation. Here Dante meets kings and nobles, powerful figures brought low, now begging for the prayers of the living to hasten their ascent. And this theme is crucial. Unlike hell, where the damned are locked forever in torment, the souls of purgatory can be aided by the prayers of those still alive. Imagine how shocking this idea was for Dante's readers. Suddenly the fate of the dead is bound to the actions of the living. And as we move higher, this connection between the earthly and the eternal will become even more fascinating. When Dante and Virgil finally reach the gate of purgatory proper, the imagery is overwhelming. 3 steps lead to the gate, one of white marble, polished like a mirror, symbolizing self-reflection, one of cracked black stone, representing contrition, and one of red, like blood, symbolizing penance. An angel, dressed in dazzling robes, holds the keys and inscribes 7 PS upon Dante's forehead marks for the 7 deadly sins. With each terrace he climbs, one of these marks will be erased, symbolizing the gradual purification of the soul. Already the stage is set for a journey as structured and symbolic as Inferno. But unlike the downward spiral of hell, here each step is a climb toward light. And the first terrace, fittingly, addresses the sin most dangerous of all, pride. In the terrace of pride, Dante sees souls bowed low, under the weight of enormous stones upon their backs, forced to walk bent and humbled. On the walls are carved images of humility, Mary accepting the angel's message, King David dancing before the ark, Trajan granting mercy to a widow. The lesson is clear. Pride is broken by humility, arrogance crushed by the weight of remembrance. As Dante observes this, one of the P's upon his forehead is erased, leaving him feeling lighter. This physical change is symbolic, but also experiential. Dante himself grows freer as he ascends. And if pride, the root of all sin, is corrected here, the next terrace deals with its natural offspring, envy. In the terrace of envy, the souls sit together in coarse garments, their eyes sewn shut with iron thread, like falcons restrained by their masters. Because envy blinded them to the joy of others in life, they are now blinded in penance. Yet their voices rise in prayer, crying out for the well-being of those who remain on earth. Notice how different this is from hell. There, souls cursed and hated forever. Here, they learn to love, even through pain. The more we ascend, the more this theme grows. The punishments are not punishments at all, but remedies, healing the distortions of sin. And the remedy for envy leads naturally to the next terrace, wrath. Here, the wrathful wander through acrid, blinding smoke, unable to see one another, stumbling blindly as they once stumbled blindly in rage. The smoke chokes and burns, forcing them to learn patience and gentleness through deprivation. Dante himself is nearly overwhelmed by the thickness of the air, showing how intense and transformative this process can be. But as the smoke clears, the journey continues to the terrace of sloth. And what Dante finds here is strikingly different from the stillness of laziness in life. The souls of the slothful are compelled to run ceaselessly, crying out examples of zeal and diligence as they rush past Dante and Virgil. In life, they wasted time. In purgatory, they must move without rest. Again, we see the poetic justice of purgatory not as cruel punishment, but as a medicine, forcing the soul to live in the opposite way to cleanse itself of sin. And yet, with every terrace, Dante grows closer to the stars, closer to light, closer to the promise of paradise. Which brings us to the next terrace, avarice and prodigality. Here the souls lie face down upon the ground, weeping, their bodies pressed to the earth as if clinging to it. They are purging the weight of their greed, their endless grasping for possessions. Dante witnesses Pope Adrian V here, who confesses the corruption of the Church with deep humility. The image is powerful souls, once consumed with power and wealth, now humbled into the dust. But even this purgation gives way to the next, gluttony. On this terrace, the souls are emaciated, starved and thirsty, surrounded by trees heavy with fruit that they cannot eat, streams of water they cannot drink. Their punishment is hunger, but their goal is discipline. By craving what they cannot have, they learn to redirect their desire toward divine nourishment. And Dante, reflecting on their suffering, sees that gluttony is not only about food, it is about craving without restraint, whether for pleasure, comfort, or excess. And once gluttony is burned away, the soul is nearly ready for the final terrace, lust. Here, the souls walk through walls of flame, purified by fire, singing hymns of love. Unlike the whirlwind of the lustful in hell, here passion is not destroyed, but transformed, redirected toward its divine purpose. The flames are terrifying, yet cleansing. Dante himself hesitates to enter until Virgil encourages him. Passing through, he emerges lighter, freer, transformed. And with this final purification, all 7 P's on his forehead are erased. His climb is nearly complete. At the very top of the mountain lies the earthly paradise, the Garden of Eden. Here, Dante encounters Matilda, a mysterious woman who represents innocence and the active life. But the most powerful moment comes when Beatrice herself appears, radiant and clothed in green, red, and white, symbolizing hope, love, and faith. Virgil, the guide of reason, disappears, for reason can only take Dante so far now. Faith must guide him. And Beatrice, stern yet loving, confronts him with his failings before offering forgiveness. This is the turning point, where Dante is prepared at last to ascend beyond the earthly, to gaze upon the heavens. But if you thought the mountain of purgatory was full of mysteries, what awaits in Paradiso is something even more extraordinary. The vision of heaven is not merely a reward, but a cosmic revelation, where the harmony of the universe itself is unveiled. We will see Dante lifted beyond earth, through the spheres of the heavens, into the presence of saints, angels, and the divine light itself. And each step upward reveals deeper truths, greater wonders, and mysteries that challenge the very limits of human imagination. The ascent through the heavens will not just describe paradise, it will attempt to show the very nature of God. And that, my friends, is where the journey grows more dazzling, more mind-expanding, and more captivating than anything we have seen so far. At the summit of Mount Purgatory, where the earthly paradise blooms in eternal spring, Dante's journey takes its most dramatic turn yet. The earthly guides of reason have fallen away. Virgil has vanished, unable to lead where human reason cannot tread. In his place now stands Beatrice, clothed in celestial colors, the embodiment of divine love and grace. Her very presence transforms the scene. Where Virgil instructed with logic, Beatrice pierces Dante's soul with beauty, sternness, and compassion all at once. And it is she who now directs his gaze upward, beyond the earthly, into the vast heavens above. What lies ahead is not a descent into darkness, but an ascent into light, into realms of harmony, mystery, and revelation so dazzling that words themselves falter before them. The first step into paradise begins with the sphere of the moon. Imagine Dante lifted upward, not by wings or ladders, but by pure longing, his very soul drawn into the heavens. The stars grow brighter, the sky more luminous, until he finds himself within the pearl-like sphere of the moon. Here dwell those who were faithful, but failed to keep their vows, their faces glowing faintly like images on misted glass. Piccarda Donati, Dante's own relative, appears to him, explaining how broken vows, though forgiven, left a mark on their eternal joy. The lesson here is subtle but powerful. Even in heaven, choices echo eternally. And yet, the souls rejoice, even in their lower place, for in paradise, no envy exists. Every soul finds perfect contentment in God's will. If this first sphere already bends our imagination, wait until Dante rises further, for each new level of heaven reveals deeper mysteries of love, truth, and divine order. From the moon, Dante ascends to Mercury, a sphere glowing with quicksilver light. Here he finds the spirits of those who sought honor and fame in life, their souls radiant, but not as brilliant as those who pursued love for its own sake. Among them is the Emperor Justinian, who recounts the history of the Roman Empire, weaving politics into theology, law into divine plan. Dante marvels at how human history is stitched into the eternal tapestry, and through Justinian's words, we see how the rise and fall of empires serve purposes far beyond earthly ambition. But the lesson is also a warning. Even noble works, if pursued for glory rather than God, leave a soul in a lower light. And if Mercury dazzles with wisdom, the next sphere Venus shines with warmth and desire transformed into divine love. In the radiant light of Venus, Dante encounters souls who embodied love, but whose passions were not always perfectly ordered. Among them is Charles Martel of Hungary, who speaks of how divine providence shapes each person's gifts, and how disorder comes when society forces souls into paths not suited to them. It is a striking reflection on human potential, how corruption and misrule warp what could have been harmony. And as the conversation unfolds, Dante learns that love itself is never evil. It is the misdirection of love that leads to sin. Here, passion is purified, elevated, reshaped into a reflection of God's own flame. But the higher Dante rises, the more radiant the souls become, until their light nearly blinds him. This prepares us for the next sphere, the sun, where the very luminaries of wisdom dwell. The sphere of the sun bursts with brilliance, surrounded by a circle of souls whose radiance outshines any earthly flame. Here Dante meets the great theologians and philosophers of Christianity, Thomas Aquinas, Albertus Magnus, Bonaventure, and many others. They sing and move in harmony, forming radiant circles of light that dance around Dante and Beatrice. Their joy is not in debate or conflict, but in unity, each praising the wisdom of the other. Thomas Aquinas, a Dominican, honors the Franciscan Saint Francis of Assisi. Bonaventure, a Franciscan, praises the Dominican Saint Dominic. The message is unmistakable. True wisdom is not rivalry, but harmony. In this dazzling chorus, Dante learns that divine truth shines brightest when humility replaces pride. Yet, as overwhelming as the sun's light is, the next sphere, the heaven of Mars, burns even more fiercely, for here shines the glory of sacrifice and courage. Mars is a cross of fire, and within it the spirits of warriors of the faith blaze like sparks in a celestial flame. Here Dante encounters his ancestor, Casaguida, who recounts the noble past of Florence, contrasting it with the corruption of Dante's own time. The conversation is both deeply personal and universal. The sacrifices of the just burn eternally in the fabric of heaven, while earthly glory fades like smoke. Casaguida also foretells Dante's future exile, giving the poet a vision of suffering yet to come, but also of divine purpose behind it. The souls of Mars remind us that courage and justice echo beyond death, that every sacrifice for truth burns forever in the eternal cross. And as Dante marvels at this fiery vision, he is lifted higher still into Jupiter, where justice itself takes flight. The souls in Jupiter form letters in the sky, spelling out the words, "Love justice, that judge the earth." They then transform into a great eagle, whose voice is the voice of divine justice itself, composed of countless blessed spirits. Imagine the very stars rearranging themselves to speak truth, the very heavens reshaping to reveal the mystery of justice. Dante, stunned, dares to question how justice works for those who lived without knowing Christ, and the eagle answers with humility and mystery, reminding him that divine wisdom surpasses human understanding. Already the revelations of paradise are stretching Dante's mind to its limit. And yet, the higher he climbs, the more dazzling the mysteries become. For after justice comes contemplation, and contemplation shines brightest in the heaven of Saturn. Saturn glows with a golden light, serene and solemn. Here Dante sees a great ladder stretching upward, upon which the contemplative souls ascend in silence. Unlike the songs and dances of the earlier spheres, here there is stillness, awe, and holy quiet. St. Peter Damian appears, speaking of the corruption of the clergy and the need for true simplicity and devotion. It is a sobering reminder that even in the Church, power can corrupt, and only humility can restore the true path. The souls here burn with contemplative fire, but without noise, without spectacle, teaching Dante that divine love takes many forms, not always in song, sometimes in silence. Yet even this stillness prepares him for the next sphere, where passion returns in thunderous brilliance, the heaven of the fixed stars. Here Dante finally beholds the great company of Christ's triumph, surrounded by the Virgin Mary and the apostles. He undergoes examinations by Peter, James, and John on faith, hope, and love, as if passing the final tests of the soul. The scene blazes with light, brighter than anything before, until Dante feels as though his very senses are overwhelmed. Beatrice's radiance grows so intense that Dante can hardly look upon her, for she is no longer merely his beloved, but the very reflection of divine beauty. And yet, this is still not the summit. Beyond the fixed stars lies the primum mobile, the fastest and outermost sphere, where the angels whirl in blinding circles around God's throne. The Prima Mobile is a storm of pure motion, the source of time itself. Here Dante sees 9 vast circles of angels spinning around a point of light so intense it pierces all creation. Beatrice explains the orders of the angels, the seraphim, cherubim, thrones, and all the celestial choirs. This vision is dizzying, vast beyond comprehension, but it is only a gateway to the final vision, the Empyrean, the dwelling place of God. And here words truly begin to fail, for Dante beholds not just light, but the very essence of eternity. The Empyrean is filled with a river of light, flowering into a vast white rose of souls, each petal a saint, each radiance a spark of eternal joy. Angels fly like bees between the rose and the light of God, carrying love endlessly back and forth. Beatrice, now at her most radiant, guides Dante to gaze directly into the divine light itself. And in that blinding brilliance, Dante sees the mysteries of the Trinity, the Incarnation, and the harmony of all creation reflected in a single vision. The journey has moved from the depths of despair to the heights of ecstasy, from the dark forest of confusion to the radiant clarity of God's love. And yet, even here, there is always more. For the vision of God is infinite, endlessly unfolding, revealing layers upon layers of truth that no human words can fully capture. And this is where the true fascination lies. The closer Dante draws to God, the more he realizes that the mystery will never end. Each glimpse reveals another. Each vision leads to a greater vision. And as our journey continues, we will see how the closing lines of Dante's Paradiso are not really an ending, but a beginning, a door into eternity itself. What Dante experiences at the summit of heaven is not the conclusion of his story, but the opening of an infinite mystery, a light that forever beckons, forever deepens, forever pulls us onward. The next part will reveal just how Dante tries to express the inexpressible, how human language strains and breaks beneath the weight of divine truth, and how even silence becomes a form of praise. Dante, lifted beyond the boundaries of stars, planets, and even the angelic choirs themselves, now stands in a realm that cannot be measured by time or space, the Empyrean. This is not a physical place, but a realm of pure existence, the eternal dwelling place of God, the angels, and the blessed souls who shine like living flames of light. Here, Dante no longer sees reality with human eyes, but with a vision sharpened and expanded by divine grace. Imagine the sensation standing where all history, all creation, and all eternity converge into a single blinding truth. It is overwhelming, and yet Dante is sustained, as though every heartbeat is carried by the very will of God. Before him opens the celestial rose, a vast and luminous garden of souls. It is not a rose of petals, but of countless radiant lights arranged in layers like petals, unfolding forever outward. Each soul takes its place in this living rose, according to its love for God and its participation in divine order. Dante gazes at this immense flower and sees the saints, the martyrs, the holy men and women of every age, Abraham, Moses, Peter, John, Mary herself, all shining brighter than suns, yet each perfectly distinct in its eternal beauty. Imagine rows upon rows of brilliance, spiraling and expanding endlessly, like a galaxy transformed into a flower of living light. What makes this even more profound is that Dante realizes he is not simply looking at history as heroes, but at humanity's eternal destiny. This is where the faithful, purified, and glorified are gathered not as shadows, but as fully awakened beings, filled with joy beyond measure. Each soul radiates the love that binds the entire cosmos together. And yet, Dante knows what he sees is only a fraction, a reflection of a mystery that cannot be fully grasped in mortal form. Beatrice, who has guided him with wisdom and love, now shines brighter than ever. Yet even her beauty, which once overwhelmed him, now appears as but a faint reflection of the glory surrounding the divine throne. She leads his gaze upward, toward the source of all this light. Here Dante sees something almost impossible to describe, an endless river of radiance flowing like liquid gold, splitting into sparks of fire, then returning to its source. Angels move within this river like sparks dancing in flame, carrying the prayers of the blessed to God. But Dante's journey is not yet over. For though he beholds the saints, the angels, and the infinite rose, the greatest vision is still ahead. He longs to see the ultimate truth, the face of God himself. And this is where Dante's words nearly collapse under the weight of the vision, because what he sees is not form, not shape, not even light as we know it, but the very source of light itself. He gazes into the divine essence, and within it he sees three circles of equal size, yet distinct in color, the mystery of the Holy Trinity. Three, and yet one. Unity and diversity perfectly joined. And in that vision, he perceives the image of humanity itself, the divine made flesh in Christ. The intensity of this final revelation is so powerful that Dante feels his own will dissolve and merge with the will of God. For a moment, every question he has carried about sin, about justice, about love, about eternity, finds its answer, not in words, but in union. It is a peace beyond peace, an understanding beyond thought. Dante becomes, in his own words, one with the love that moves the sun and the other stars. But here's where things get even more fascinating, because Dante ends not with finality, but with mystery. He admits that even after all of this, human language cannot contain what he has seen. He can only hint, gesture, and leave us with the burning desire to seek it ourselves. This is why his journey is not just his own. It is an invitation. Every circle of hell, every terrace of purgatory, every sphere of heaven has been leading not just Dante, but us, the readers, the seekers, the dreamers, to this same point of longing. And yet, is this truly the end? Or is it only the beginning of something even deeper? Because Dante's vision does not resolve into silence, it opens questions. If God is the source of all love and order, what does that mean for the world we live in now? If the celestial rose blooms eternally, how do we take our place within it? If the divine light revealed the Trinity and the Incarnation, what mysteries remain hidden that Dante himself could not fully express? These questions hang in the air, unanswered, like echoes that refuse to fade. And this is where the next part becomes even more thrilling, because beyond Dante's words lies the world of interpretation, prophecy, and hidden meaning. Scholars for centuries have debated, did Dante leave us secret codes within the comedy? Are the astronomical alignments, the numbers, the precise structures of hell, purgatory, and heaven pointing to something beyond the poem itself? Could it be that Dante was not only describing a vision of the afterlife, but also encoding truths about history, politics, and even the destiny of humanity? The next section will peel back these mysteries, revealing connections most readers never notice, the hidden numerology of the poem, the strange prophecies buried in Dante's encounters, and the way his vision might still be speaking directly to our own world today. So if you thought the vision of God was the end, think again, because the next stage will reveal secrets Dante only hinted at. The real question is, what truths are still waiting to be uncovered? And what if those truths were meant not just for Dante, but for us? And so we have journeyed together through the vast landscape of Dante's Divine Comedy, from the terrifying descent into the 9 circles of hell, to the hopeful climb up the terraces of Mount Purgatory, and finally into the blinding brilliance of paradise itself, where Dante beheld the celestial rose, the choirs of angels, and even the vision of God. Each stage revealed more than just the fate of souls. It exposed the deepest truths about justice, love, and the destiny of humanity. But remember, what we've just explored is only the grand outline of Dante's journey. Each circle of Inferno, each terrace of Purgatory, and each sphere of paradise is filled with mysteries, symbols, and stories that demand closer attention. And that's exactly where we're going next. In the upcoming videos, we'll peel back the layers of hell itself, circle by circle, soul by soul, uncovering the hidden meaning behind every punishment, every sin, and every warning Dante left for us. If you thought this overview was powerful, just wait until we dive into the detail, because the next part will reveal secrets about Inferno that most readers never notice. So if you've enjoyed this journey so far, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share this video with anyone who loves history, literature, or the mysteries of the afterlife. And don't forget to drop a comment down below with your thoughts. Which part of Dante's journey struck you the most? Was it the horrors of hell, the struggles of purgatory, or the dazzling light of paradise? I'd love to hear your insights. Stay tuned, because in the next episode, we will begin our deep exploration of Inferno, where the dark forests, the monstrous guardians, and the souls of the damned reveal truths that are still shockingly relevant today. And trust me, the next one will be even more fascinating, because every circle hides a lesson that will challenge the way you see sin, justice, and even your own life.